I think it's become abundantly clear that Donald Trump is not going to change course because a bunch of me's out there are screaming about how terrible the things are that he's doing. It's become clear Elon doesn't care if people like me with my ideology are screaming. But maybe if some of Trump's own base realizes what the is happening, then we could see a little bit of backing off of these things. I don't know. Maybe it's wishful thinking. But in that vein, there is some backlash bubbling from one of the leaders of MAGA, one of the prominent figures, a MAGA podcaster, being Steve Bannon, who is a former Trump advisor. And he has a new round of really stark criticism, calling Elon Musk a parasite. And maybe if this starts getting out, there's some backlash. Again, a hopeful scenario where Elon Musk's power is reduced. Yes, by the courts. Yes, by general backlash. But maybe because some within the MAGA base go, wait, he's cutting our benefits. Which is exactly the goal here as Elon leads Doge. By the way, in court, the Trump administration just argued that Elon actually isn't a part of Doge, and I'll get to that a little bit later in this segment. If you appreciate the show, please do click the subscribe button if you haven't yet. Before getting to the latest example of Elon's feud with Steve Bannon, here is a reminder of a couple months ago what Steve Bannon had to say.
Crony capitalism and Elon Musk. And by the way, when we cut him off, he went begging the CCP, and that's why they have the joint venture in Shanghai, the Tesla, which is 100% of his value, right? This guy lives on government contracts and taxpayer subsidies, okay? It's all, we're going to get Joe Allen in here for a second to transform it. Elon Musk, once again, brother, I'm smart enough to tell you no.
Before going further, do you notice that, and full screen that if you would, Jaden, behind Steve Bannon is a plaque. And the plaque reads, "There are no conspiracies, but there are no coincidences." Now, I've heard that a lot from different conspiracy theorists. It makes no sense on its face because there are coincidences. But you know who he's quoting, apparently? It says Steve Bannon. Can you imagine? Full screen now me, if you would, Jaden. If behind me, I just had plaques quoting myself. Quotes that I definitely didn't come up with. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Luke Beasley. Okay? That's what he has here. Very weird. Very, very weird. Okay, charging forward.
No to your face, and I'm evil enough to be able to expose you as a running dog for the greatest enemy this nation's ever had. You're a war profiteer. You're sleeping with the enemy, brother, and you've been doing it because you're not an American nationalist. You're not even an American. All you are is a globalist, okay? A globalist. And you will go where anybody writes you a check, and you would take it from Adolf Hitler himself because you're taking it from people that are as bad as Adolf Hitler. The murderous regime of the Chinese Communist Party, which you praised on their 100th anniversary. Let me bring it.
All right, so some really stark words there, right? That was back in December. Well, now he's revamping the criticism. And I have a really important question I want to ask all of you after reading these quotes. Because there's a big lapse in the MAGA logic, even when parts of the criticisms I'm excited about. So I'll get to that. But first, Bannon's latest criticisms, as Newsweek reports on, of Musk aired during an interview with Unheard's James Billet and were later amplified on his War Room podcast, reflecting a broader divide among Trump loyalists as the president navigates his second term. Quote, Musk is the one with power at the moment. Is he conceding that Trump is not really calling the shot? The Democrats, and remember as I'm going through this, Steve Bannon is one of the most avid Trump supporters there is and used to be an advisor. Helped to craft the first term outcomes. The Democrats are nowhere to be seen. He said Musk is playing God, enforcing radical changes without respecting the country's values or traditions. Bannon also criticized Musk for failing to deliver on his promises to cut government waste. He blasted Doge's budget handling, calling it performative and questioning why it had yet to propose major spending cuts beyond symbolic eliminations of government diversity programs. Doge is sitting there with the budget, but where the F are the Doge cuts, Bannon said. We are 30 days away from approving a budget for the entire year with $2 trillion already baked in and not one penny of anything that Doge found. It's ludicrous. There's hesitancy, he says, to take on the Pentagon. I want $100 billion cut from its $900 billion budget, really $1 trillion. Musk, and this is the big quote, is a parasitic, illegal immigrant. He wants to impose his freak experiments and play act as God without any respect for the country's history, values, or traditions. Now, I absolutely oppose and think so poorly, as we've been going through for months now, Elon Musk, especially now we're seeing what he's willing to do, who he's willing to hurt, and how he's willing to leverage his governmental power. The fact that this unelected billionaire who bought his way into this position of power is doing the things he's doing is extremely dangerous, terrible, and representative of a harmful oligarchy. All of that's true. I also don't think Steve Bannon would be better. And so I'm not saying here, Bannon, he definitely has the correct outcomes in mind. But what I know is that he does want to or likes to present himself as more of the true populist. I'm really the one looking out for the working class, MAGA. But I doubt he's going to criticize when that budget he referenced being pushed through by Republicans through Congress. If Trump signs it into law, he's not going to criticize the fact that it is undeniably, you can't make a case otherwise, designed to benefit the wealthiest among us while leaving behind everyone else. That is not an action by a party that someone would support if they actually supported the working class, or even separate from that, just general fairness in our structure economically and the basic foundation of how we operate the economy. Because that's what they're getting ready to push through. More than $4 trillion of tax cuts. A big chunk of that's just extending the tax cuts for the rich that Trump got through in 2017. We've examined the numbers of that extensively. And then all of that is being used to further justify humongous cuts in the trillion. I think they want $2 trillion or something like that cut from mandatory spending, which is your Medicare, Social Security, SNAP, etc. And so that gets me around to the question that I have for you, which is, why is it that someone like Bannon can identify in some ways correctly how Elon Musk, he's in it for himself? Why else would the most wealthy person on the planet want to buy the type of access that he did? Obviously, he's going to leverage it for himself. And that's what we're seeing. And so many people are being hurt because of it. Agencies being shut down that provide necessary services. Benefits being cut off to people who are veterans, who are in need of health clinics, who are going to domestic violence shelters, etc. In some cases, Elon not complying with judges' orders about the things that he's doing and their unlawful nature. But why is it if they see some of that, if some of the followers see it, and they're going, all right, now Elon's crossing some lines. I don't know which action, because most of the MAGAs are justifying a lot of the actions, which actions really pissing them off. But for some of them, like Bannon, who has a huge MAGA audience, Elon's crossed some lines. How do they then not say that reflects poorly on Trump? That's my question to you. They never go, Trump. First term, they go, this person's a rhino. Oh, we hate the dozens of Trump administration officials who came out and said, this guy's crazy. Please don't let him back in the Oval Office. He's a threat to democracy. And they would go, oh, rhino. No, it's a secret liberal in disguise. Wolf in sheep's clothing or something. And then you would follow it up with, wait, so do you judge Trump at all? Because the buck stops with him? And he's the one who hired them? No, because he didn't know a lot of people. So he's really tough. Being president's really hard. Same thing here. Elon Musk, he's a parasite. He just wants to give, pleasure to China. He wants to pleasure G hard. Apologies for that language. And they don't go, so now I judge Trump for that. Because Trump's the one giving Elon all this power. Why? A little concerning post, by the way. Melanie Dorigo posted, step 1, fire all of the government employees who make air travel safe. Step 2, let America see the consequences of those actions. Step 3, outsource the safety jobs he eliminated to his own company. Step 4, profit. What is she responding to? Well, Elon Musk responding to the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, saying the safety of air travel is a nonpartisan matter. SpaceX engineers will help make air travel safer. So is he suggesting his company should be tasked with, should be hired to make sure that air travel is safer? Hey, when did we see a big spike in travel incidents? Maybe your judgment calls haven't been as wise as you think, Elon. There's also a really fascinating but damning report from 60 Minutes that interviews a former head of USAID, the Agency for International Development, that's been essentially fully gutted now under Elon. And he served under Bush and is a very conservative Republican, but is saying what I've been saying, which is this is a constitutional crisis.
I think we're creating a system that violates the separation of powers and the checks and balances that are intended in the Constitution.
Republican Andrew Natsios, former head of USAID, spoke to us in Washington in part because he is not hearing public appeals to reason from fellow Republicans.
I am not a moderate Republican. I am a conservative Republican and a strict constructionist. The reason they're not saying anything, I think they're afraid. Musk has said that he would spend $100 million in primaries on anybody who opposed the president on anything. So I think there's a lot of fear in the city right now.
How do you view this moment in history?
I don't want to be too pessimistic, but it does appear we may be headed towards some sort of a constitutional crisis. I hope that doesn't happen. I pray it doesn't happen, but it's certainly concerning to me what's going on in the city right now.
Is the constitutional order breaking down?
We'll see if they refuse to enforce a court order by the Supreme Court. If it gets to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court rules against the administration on something and they refuse to enforce it, then we will have a constitutional crisis.
What happens then?
Well, I don't know.
No one knows.
No one knows.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's interesting when they say, you know, I just, it's so weird Republicans aren't stepping up. I mean, just what happened to, yeah, that's been the case for a while. I think now you don't need to wait and see, are Republicans going to step up? Just assume they're not and do whatever you need to do. So I'm glad that he's coming in and speaking out as a conservative Republican, but now that's not really, I think that used to mean more to people. Wow, you were a Bush Republican, and now you're saying that this is a threat to our constitutional order. But now it's just the second that you're not embedded fully up the rear end of Trump, they'll just call you a rhino and move on. There's not even a thought about it. There's already such a structure and a characterization built that you can just plug in. There's a little mold. You just plug in, boom. Any Republican, regardless of the record, the second they say something negative about Trump, and any of the followers go, okay, cool, they're in that mold. I hate them. Easy, move on. A part of that is because you have Fox hosts like this one saying stuff like this.
To ensure prosperity. And the fact that the media can't keep up, A, doesn't matter because we're not looking to them for the news anyway. And B, guess what President Trump is doing? His Office of Comms is directly emailing and putting out on Truth Social and putting on the websites every day, all day, all exactly what they're doing. So all you have to do, legacy media, is simply repeat, retweet, repost. And that's the news and that's the facts.
They can't even keep up with.
What? What do you mean? Did you hear what she said? The only thing the media should be doing is reposting the official communications of the White House. That's her suggestion of how you could be a more truthful media. That's giving too much away. Mrs. Fox host, Miss Fox host, Madam Fox host, whatever it might be. That's giving too much away as to what your goal is. Hey, I think I have a really interesting new idea. Okay, listen, 1 second. Do you know how media outlets spend all this money and they hire all these people and they try to hold accountable people in positions of power? They try to derive meaning amid an environment where those who are powerful are putting out a lot of different stuff that's propaganda or that is meant to make the powerful person look good. It's really tough, right? Because this person's saying that thing, this person's saying that thing. So you could save a lot of effort by just regurgitating exactly what the powerful person is saying. Yeah, that is what the media does in some countries I can think of. And we used to take pride that our media didn't do that because that's called state media. That's called propaganda media. That's called Russian state TV, North Korean state TV. That's not what journalism is supposed to be. But thank you for giving away just how propagandistic you're willing to be. Share your thoughts in the comments. Support the show. Get the members only bonus show by clicking that join button below.